The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Hi, and welcome to Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. My guest today is Mayor Ian Boddy of the City of Owen Sound, and Ian is actually out of doors at Kelso Beach at Nawash Park. Right, Ian?
Correct. I'm right here on the beach, right here in our newly named Kelso Beach at Nawash Park. We're officially named, I think. We've been using it since about 2018, so we're happy to get it official.
Yeah, and that was one of the bylaws that was proposed at brought in at the last meeting of council, and it kind of puts into practice what the city has been doing for several years.
Well, those who know the history, and I don't know enough of it, the Nawash village was up behind me on the hills overlooking this park area. They used the Potawatomi River quite a bit for fishing in this whole area. It would be the summer camp. They would tour during the winter and go through hunting areas throughout the region and come back here central for the fish in the summer. So when the first surveyor came along, who I believe was Telford, but it might have been Rutherford, came along, he went up the river up to approximately where City Hall is now and set up his camp there, and it was swampy and not good land. So the Nawash village was on good land out here in what we also call Outbrook, for those that have been kicking around town for a while.
Yes, I'm familiar with the expression. It's that there are people who are living today who prefer to say, yes, I'm from Brook.
It's either Brook, but it always seemed to be Outbrook.
Outbrook, yes.
I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe that was just my grandmother.
But the point is that the indigenous settlement has been there for centuries. It was historically a place of gathering, a place where where there was community established.
Now, interestingly, I'm going a little bit sideways too fast, maybe, but I was in Chicago last week. We did a land acknowledgement there, and they acknowledged the Confederacy of the Three Fires, being Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Odawa, same as here. So we're part of that same territory. Here is Chicago, way down the other side of Lake Michigan, and I was astounded how big the territory was.
Yes, I think that if you start to listen to the stories of the indigenous history that occurred before the surveyors arrived, you'll be quite thrilled, entranced, and actually quite intrigued by some of the stories. I had the privilege of hearing some of the stories about Saugeen First Nation and the battles that were fought there. Quite an interesting set of stories there. But as you listen, you learn, it becomes so much more rich.
Correct. Yeah, and very little of it, or not enough of it, is written down as of yet. So hopefully those oral stories get written down and easier to share for all of us.
Indeed. Now, Grandmother Sturgeon is still keeping watch.
Yes, that's down south end of the park. Of course, best way to get to it is park by the grain elevators. Come over the bridge there, over the river, and it's right there at the Nama Gitchuan, Gitchinama. Oh, there we go. I tried to. Thank you. Gardens that is there, and it's really spectacular. The sturgeon fish is amazing. The whole park is really amazing, and of course, it's on city land, but all the fundraising and all the work was done by a community group, which is, that's one of those stories that helps make Owen Sound what it is, all the community work that goes in, and that's an example of it. It's really special.
And I think it's worth honoring the people who started the project, because they had a vision, and it took time. What's it been, 10, 12 years?
Well, after our homecoming in '07 and about the summer of '08, maybe February '08, I went on to the operations committee before I went on council. And I remember Susan Staves coming to the committee at that point with this idea. And, we were all in favor and please go ahead. So it's been now it's 12 to 14 years from the start of just an idea to where we are, where it's established now.
Uh-huh. Well, it's certainly that's a center of interest and a center of history. And with National Indigenous Day coming up in a week or so, it's certainly worth reminding people that there will be events around the Reconciliation Garden, and it'll be a part, and it is always a part of our community.
June 21st, of course, is our Indigenous Day, and the sunrise ceremony. So you want to be down here about 5:30 in the morning. I was here last year, and it was amazing watching the suns come up on the other side of the bay there as the ceremony was ongoing. And the fire ceremony and some of the other ceremonies that take place along the river, and to think that those ceremonies have gone on in that river for hundreds of years. It's neat that we're able to bring it back and that it's ongoing in our community now and going forward.
Yes, and the invitation is always open to anyone. These are not secrets. They are open to anyone. And having been at several of them myself, I know that they're quite remarkable.
Yes,
and quite
very welcoming. And yes,
very welcoming. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Well, let's move on to another event that happened very recently, the most recent council meeting, and that's the annual Volunteer of the Year Awards. And this is our really a highlight of the council year as I've watched the council meetings, because it's a way of celebrating people who are doing really good things in our community. And the first one was Carol Rainey, who was actually Volunteer of the Year.
Well, and so, going back to a minute ago where I said that the gardens were put in by a volunteer group working to make the community better, Owen Sound would not exist and function without so many volunteers, whether it be minor sports, whether it be at the hospital, whether it be at the church, whether it be at, there's just so many things. So Carol was recognized for her many years of service up at the hospital, volunteering, helping, bringing in new volunteers, sitting on committees, helping the hospital in function, really, and was recognized for that. She's also been very involved in conservative politics in the area, helping with Alex Ruff, certainly with his election campaign, and Bill Walker in the provincial side was great help. And very well known and very respected, and it's great to see her being honored for her volunteer effort.
Well, you make a very good point there, Ian, that while we think of volunteers as people who work on our civic improvement, there's also another way that that people can volunteer, and that is through working in political parties. It's just another form of volunteerism. We sort of I suspect our political system would be a lot poorer if we didn't have volunteers.
Well, and actually, if you look at United States, it's all about big money being raised. I remember years ago hearing that Senator Ted Kennedy spent as much on his campaign to get reelected as a senator, one person, as the entire Liberal or conservative government would spend in Canada right across the country. So here we don't spend as much, we don't raise as much, we maybe don't owe as many favors. And the system really relies on volunteers and people to be active at the provincial level, at the national level, the federal level, and really municipal elections as well. So it's partly a community builder, but it's really important. That's how our political system in Canada works, is people being involved.
And if I can throw in a plug here for municipal volunteers, municipal election volunteers, it's a great way for people to get to know their community. I'm sure you would not have been elected in your political career without people who worked as volunteers on your campaign.
Yes, absolutely. And the other side of it was I volunteered to be on a committee or two before I got there to start to understand how the city worked. And we are always looking for, well, we'll come up in late in the year, about December, we'll be looking for volunteers to sit in committees starting next February and starting all over again. So, yeah, the whole city relies on volunteers.
Yes, because you did mention that you started out before you ran for municipal office. You were on the operations committee, which was a volunteer position. People get to be involved and get to see how those decisions are made.
Actually, going way back, I was in the Heart and Stroke Committee in town, and then I coached lacrosse for 4 years, and then I sat on the Summer Folk Board for 5 years, and then Susquehanna Centennial. So I've always tried to be involved in the community and really encourage others to do the same.
And I hate to tell you, Ian, but when and if you decide not to run again, your volunteer career will not end.
I expect that. I can't imagine not being involved in some way. So,
well, I look at some of your predecessors, and I know that they are very active in certain volunteer organizations. So, once you get the bug, you get the bug.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. The second volunteer of the year is a well-known person in the community, Joan Beecroft, who was Senior of the Year. And she was nominated for her work in advancing the rights of the local 2S LGBTQA QQIA plus community. And she has been a long time volunteer in so many parts of our community.
Joan is a little bit different. So often when we look at volunteers, we look at the people that are opening the door on the bench at the hockey arena and those types of volunteering hours. Joan has done so much as an activist to try and bring equality for others in the community. And she's no shrinking violet. I've probably got the odd little scar maybe from the odd barb that has come from her, pushing us along when we're maybe slow to move. And she has changed this city. I think her and others, of course, but certainly she's a big part of it. So we wanted to recognize her for that effort and for making the world better for others, not just volunteer hours, but just with vision, effort, and advocacy.
Indeed. She has worked toward inclusion of outsiders, not just the 2S LGBTQIA plus community, but also the immigrant community, newcomers.
Correct.
She's done a wonderful storytelling with her book on newcomers to Grey Bruce.
Yeah, so, her and two others, and I can't remember their names off the top of my head, pulled together all the stories from new Canadians that are living in Grey Bruce and shared their stories. And there's some remarkable stories in that book. I know it's available at Ginger Press in downtown Owen Sound, and it is really an interesting book to read for anyone that lives in Grey Bruce.
To be sure. And the third volunteer of the year was for Parker Davis, who was the youth volunteer of the year. And I watched the presentation and I heard the presenter outline what he's done, and I'm thinking, whoa, this young man is certainly very, very he's incredible. That's one word that comes to mind. And I think he will go places because of his way of viewing the world. Very, very positive and very, very gently challenging and encouraging.
Has put in lots of hours with the Junior Optimists. They will find things to do. He's very, very creative in coming up with new projects to involve people and other kids, and then to pick charities or causes that maybe be a better word that they can support. So really, really creative. Ontario scholar, very bright, very hardworking, and nonstop. And it's pretty amazing for a young person that age to be that active, and it's very impressive. You're quite right. It'll be interesting to watch his career as he goes forward.
Yes, I have known some of these young people who have done incredible things over the years, and they are just, as they become more mature, they continue to do these incredible things in their vocation, and they impress. These kids will make difference. These young people will make a difference in this country, and so a well-deserved award, and you just never know who's gonna come. When will the next awards cycle happen?
I will be into, I can't remember when we started. It'll be into January, February that we'll start looking for applications next year, and then
Sure.
on into next spring when we bring the awards.
Okay, well, that's something for people to keep in their minds and this is a way of saying thank you and recognizing significant people in our community. It's not individuals; organizations can name can honor someone or name someone or nominate someone. So good to know. Good to know. Well, let's change things up a little bit, because a lot of the agenda in the most recent council meeting was taken up with presentations about water and sewage. And you and I've had this conversation before. It's not what you see, it's what you don't see that actually matters when you're talking about water and sewer.
Last week, I was in Chicago representing the city, the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative. So it's an organization. There's 245 municipalities that are members. It's American influence that it's a mayor's conference, but there's others there. So it's very much on water protection, protecting the Great Lakes Basin, making sure that water isn't taken out and piped somewhere else and distributed into a different water basin. It's protecting water. It's protecting drinking water. So many of the cities on the other side of the border are getting the lead out, so to speak. In fact, I think that's actually the name of the program that's funded by the current federal government down there. Is get the lead out, and they're removing lead pipes so that people can drink water safely. We take it for granted. We can go away for weeks at a time and come home and turn on that tap and get safe drinking water instantly that we can drink that is safe. We're not that far removed from the Walkerton inquiry, and luckily there's a lot of training that we have to go through, and a lot of information that came out of that disaster at Walkerton. So, we flush toilets. We want to go to this bay here and swim at this beach, and we want it to be safe and clean and good for fish and good for families and good for boating. But that means that we've got to clean it up, and it isn't cheap. The water, frankly, a big bay like that isn't expensive, but getting it to your door and getting it safely and getting it away from your door. When you flush that toilet, pull the handle, away it goes. It has to be cleaned and processed, and any bacteria removed before it goes back into the water. All of that costs a lot of money. So unfortunately, the cost is going up, but it's the most important thing we can do. In a sense, we could live without a park. We could live without an arena. We could live without a street light. We could live on a gravel road. We could find a way without a sidewalk, but there's absolutely no way do we survive without water and wastewater. Those are the two biggest things that the municipality provides. And so it's important that we maintain the system so it continues to be safe. We don't run into a Walkerton type of disaster, that it continues to be safe for people to drink. So unfortunately, it's going up 8%. The cost is going up 8% this year. A couple of years ago during COVID, we raised it 0 and we were told to put it at 5%, but we knew when we went at 0 during COVID, we didn't know if people were working, what their finances were, and we knew at that time it meant that we're going to have 6 and 8% increases now to catch up to that 0 year. So that's where we're at.
And the other thing too, I think the point that was made is that these are capital costs. These are not changes in service. These are not human resource costs. These are capital costs because, as you said, treating the water coming in and treating it going out is not cheap.
It's the capital costs, it's the piping, it's the, there will be some treatment to it, obviously, that costs, but it's the capital cost of all the equipment, all the infrastructure that's under the ground that you don't see that gets it there. I toured the world's largest water treatment plant in Chicago. They've got two there that combined, they produce or purify just under 1 billion gallons of water a day. That's about 231 times the size of what we do here. Touring that, I could see little things that they need work on. It's an old city. We've got a plan to work on that. We're in really better shape than some of those American cities and some of our other Canadian cities. But we have to maintain it so that water is always safe for consumption for our citizens.
Now, one of the things that was said at council was that, and I think it was Kate Allen who said this, is that water rates are, or the water system is self-funded with user fees. Property tax dollars are not applied to that. Is that decision a provincial level decision, or is that a local level decision?
David, it's always been my understanding that it's a provincial decision. We have to have a financial plan, and it's always been my understanding that it had to be self-funded, that we couldn't take tax dollars. That's the way I've had it explained before. Kate kind of hesitated in that, just said, oh, we need to have a financial plan, and I'm not sure what she was thinking, that it could be funded anyway. But that's never been my understanding. It's been my understanding it has to be funded separately. And we also run our wastewater plant the same way, that it's self-funded, that we've got a business plan that it pays for itself, that we're putting money into the SOC for future infrastructure needs. And so we're maintaining the system.
That's really helpful to hear, because there was a little bit of confusion around that. I've also been told the same thing you have said, and you have said it in the past. It must be a user-funded system. So I'm quite sure that'll get sorted out in the wash. But
I'll have to clarify that just to make sure that I know what I'm talking about. But that's always been the system. And to go back to that financial plan, we probably talked about it before. Our infrastructure, I think just water, it could be wrong. I'm going to make it up. I think it's over $30 million worth. So as it depreciates, so, if a pipe's supposed to last 50 years and it costs $1,000 per pipe, then over those 50 years, you keep writing it down from 1,000 to 950 to 900 to, bring that cost down. What you want to do is put dollar amount into a savings account to cover that depreciation each year. Then you're also trying to estimate what the inflation is going to be, or what the cost of that pipe is going to be in 50 years when you go to replace it. So when we looked at our plan the other day, as presented by Kate, it showed a very high number that we really need to be at to maintain the financial plan, that capital plan. Asset management plan. We're quite a bit below that. We'll be dipping into our reserves, which will knock the reserves down over the next couple of years as we do repairs and upgrades and make investment, and then it'll start to build again and hopefully get back towards that number that we should be at. But we're nowhere near where it should be for the plan to please really what the province requires. It's always been felt, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you one more time.
Ahead.
It's always been felt that sort of the opinion that was given was that you had to have a sound financial plan and be working towards it if you hope to get any of the grants from the provincial government. So if they thought you're being irresponsible, there's less chance, in theory, was the way it was supposed to be, less chance that you're going to get grants from them. So that's certainly been part of the motivation.
I thought the contradiction that Deputy Mayor Grigg pointed out was interesting, that people saving water doesn't really help the system, because the more water you save, the less capital flows into the system for system replacement. And, because if you just pay less on your water bill.
Well, and you'll notice when you get your water bill that a big portion of it is a fixed rate to try and cover the infrastructure. And people that are away for a month are ticked that they're still paying a fair amount to keep that system in place, but they didn't drink any water. So as we consume less water, that portion of the bill that's collected that is to pay for the actual water used has shrunk. And again, in Chicago and many other cities we talked last week, a lot of people are finding as they've increased their bills that people are drinking less water. They're being a little more careful, maybe not paying to water their lawns, etc. They're just being more careful with their water. And so it is dropping, but our costs remain fixed. So if the revenue drops, it means that we've got to increase the bill to account for that revenue that's dropped from, I'm going to say lack of sales, but lack of water use.
Sure. It's the conundrum we find ourselves in, and I'm not sure there's a quick solution other than to expect the fact that our water rates will go up because the infrastructure needs to be replaced.
Correct.
I remember I've had a tour of both the water and sewer systems, and I've always felt that people, I know there are security issues and it's hard to put people through that, but I've always felt that people should at least see what goes on in our water and sewer systems, because quite frankly, it is absolutely marvelous to see, and the staff who are there are thoroughly dedicated to our safety and keeping that system running.
Yeah, I'm very confident that our staff could walk into that plant in Chicago and run it as well, if not better, the way we run our water plant. I wasn't in the wastewater plant down there, but of course, the wastewater plant in a way is probably more expensive to operate than the water plant. The sewage plant going back out requires more mechanization, more treatment than water coming in. But some of our pumps are 50 years old, and they've been very carefully maintained and serviced and balanced. And our operators at both systems have got such long-term knowledge of operation that they've got a fine finger control understanding of the system. And, they know when the wind's blowing a certain direction and there's a storm, what they're going to have to do because of what's going to come in through the intake pipe. And that's just, natural knowledge and experience that's pretty amazing.
And speaking of water, before we leave this subject, there was also a discussion of replacement of our water meters across the city. And I thought that was very interesting because although it's a big ticket item, it's something that will allow for remote monitoring and reduction and perhaps a little bit easier understanding of the billing.
But David, my recollection might not be right. I think they went in the 70s, and somebody used to come and knock at the door and have to go down and read the little number on it in the basement. Then there was a little electronic gizmo that was attached to the meter that went to the outside of the building, and a meter person would have to run from house to house and touch that meter to be able to read it. So naturally, with anything that's mechanical, with water rushing through it from the 70s or 80s till now, those are worn out. They don't necessarily read all the water that comes out. The electronics getting to the outside might not be functioning. The cost of going into doing door-to-door means that we only read every 3 months. So it's not as accurate. We're estimating sometimes, overestimating what you're going to use for water, underestimating sometimes. So you can get fluctuations in your bill. By replacing the meters, they will be physically more precise, so they'll read better and be more accurate. And then to be able to read them electronically from inside without somebody having to be there and go door to door means we should be able to do a monthly reading and be closer, more accurate, and put out monthly billing, which everyone would be much happier, I think, with that.
I'm sure. What's the timeline for that project, or has it been established yet?
What we were talking about the other day was projects that are in the plans. We didn't necessarily approve those. It was part of a plan to explain why the cost is going up 8% and what some of the projects are that need to be done. So that isn't approved, so it'll be the next couple of years.
So stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
And speaking of stay tuned, I'm going to invite the those who are watching to stay tuned, because we're going to take a quick break. And oh my golly, we haven't even gotten off the first page of my questions, Ian. All right, friends, I'm David Shearman. This is Politically Speaking, and yes, we'll be right back.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Leonard Thompson, 13 years old, diabetes mellitus, 65 pounds.
Starve the child to let them live. The treatment's as cruel as the disease. It's a death sentence.
Dr. Banting.
This could be it.
He's the first to receive this trial.
But will it save him?
It's not pure enough.
So we try again. And again. And again.
Before the discovery of insulin, diabetes was a death sentence. Banting, Best, Collip, and McLeod's breakthrough has saved millions of lives. Leonard Thompson's was the first.
What kind of show do you want to see on Rogers TV? What interests you? Log on to rogerstv.com, fill out a show proposal, and tell us about your segment idea. We want to know what you want to see. Rogers TV, only on Rogers.
Hi, and welcome back to Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. My guest is Mayor Ian Boddy, who is joining us from Kelso Beach at Nawash Park. Gotta get that one right. Kelso Beach at Nawash Park. And he's enjoying the sun, and I'm here in my basement studio. Something wrong about that, Ian. Something wrong.
Well,
Anyway.
you should be here, actually. We could do this live right here on the beach.
That takes a little more work, but yeah, we probably could do it. But anyway, another interesting discussion that happened at council was the fees and charges review, and this is an annual event that has to happen because council has to approve the change in all fees which are levied by the city. And I was astonished at how big that list is. There's a lot of fees that have to be paid for this, that, and the other thing.
Well, naturally, we could collect tax from everybody to pay for everything. But there's so many of those specialized services that not everyone uses. So the idea is that you have a user fee that comes close to or does cover the cost of that service. So we've got a lot of fees for a lot of services that people get charged when they use those fees. You know, a development fee for a developer that's coming in and wants their plans reviewed is obviously a big one. The one that everyone sees is the bag tag on the garbage bag that goes out. And I guess, you know, back to water, wastewater, there's a user fee in a sense, but it falls under a different bylaw.
Yeah, but things like marriage licenses, dog licenses, cemetery services, purchase of graves, and on and on and on. It's quite a comprehensive list, to be sure.
Yeah, there'll be, downtown, there'll be people that'll buy a monthly parking sticker, etc. So, yeah.
I think the other thing that was rather astonishing is that that generates about $4 million for the city's budget.
Yes. I'm not convinced, we're getting there maybe. Not convinced that all of the user fees actually cover all the specific costs, but we're getting there. There's some things you want to be flexible on, but yes, it is a lot of money.
Okay. And speaking of lots of money, the Tom is undergoing a renovation, and looks like things are coming along.
Yeah, of course, it's around the corner from my office, and I often go past it to get to City Hall on my daily visit. So the entrance looks amazing at the Tom. The piece of artwork, that sculpture that's across the top, is moved across to be right across the top, it being a stainless steel quote of McDonald. No, Group 7. Jackson, sorry, of when the gallery opened is there, and it looks so much better spread right across the top over the new front entrance. So it looks great.
And then there are accessibility changes to be made as well.
Yeah, so with some grants, we're able to make the lift or elevator a little bit better, and make the building more accessible. The bathrooms were outdated. Make it more accessible for everyone to be able to use.
Sure. And these will be done by the end of the summer?
Yes. There's too much detail going through my head sometimes, so I'm not on top of that specific timeline. I think that's the goal, so we can get back into hosting things in the fall again.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
And just to be clear, David, you can still get to the Tom through the library if you can't get through the front door. It's not closed. It's for people that are visiting over the summer. We'll have people that are up at the cottage that come in every summer for a couple of hours to the gallery. So it's still open. It's not closed as they redid that front entrance.
Yes, and while we're at promoting the Tom, I have done tours of Owen Sound for various groups and taken them to the Tom, and I just said, "Hey, here's a thumbnail sketch of who Tom Thomson was. Enjoy," and they have been astonished at the gallery. So it's one of those gems that we have in our city. Yeah. Now, I wanted to go on to a result, and this is something that actually you had to recuse yourself from the council meeting, but I think it's worth noting that the Callaway Right project, which is in behind Walmart, had an issue to do with Chapman House. And what I thought was really worth noting is that at the public meeting, the first public meeting, issues were raised by Chapman House about the proximity of this development to their property, and they wanted to ensure privacy. They come back to the second meeting, or to for the approval, and they worked it out. And I think that shows how the public meeting process can work to the best of its ability.
And that's not the one that I had the pecuniary interest in, so I was able to be active in that one. I really credit both of those parties once they're introduced. It's not just the public meeting. It was they had already been in touch with each other before we got to that public meeting, and Callaway recognized the importance of the hospice here in town and the privacy and all those issues, and immediately worked with them to come up with solutions, and presented solutions and worked on them with the management from the hospice, and got it done, and then came back to us. So, it's all in their court. They did a great job.
Yeah. And so municipal staff just had to kind of ensure that it was happening and listen for the result.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, and it was a great solution. And that's going to be a couple of apartment buildings and eventually some townhouses. So, where you go past the 10th Street extension, past the hospice, starting just in that bush right past it before you get to the stop sign at the back corner of Walmart, it's all in there to your right. And it's well placed for people working at the hospital, for Georgian College, and the whole area.
Well, I was thinking that if people wanted to, right now, that intersection is left turn only, because
Right.
you've got a great big steel barrier across the road right of way. But in time, that barrier will be removed, and there will be development as it goes up that gentle hill in behind Walmart. And that road, I think, comes out to the east of the hospital in another subdivision.
It will go straight through east, so it'll be 10th Street. So it'll continue to run 10th Street, so behind Walmart, behind Home Depot, come out at that street that goes up between Winners or Michaels and Home Depot. It will come out there and continue behind there and service residential property behind Winners, as well as property that would enter residential that will enter from 8th Street to the east of the hospital.
Yeah. So it's kind of hard to imagine, because it's just fields or it's bush. But come back in five or 10 years and we won't recognize it.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
I'm always amazed that from the time we start to the time we actually turn a key, how long it takes. But it's realistic. By the time they get plans in, they get their approval, get their plans drawn up, get building permits, get their funding in place. It's not just at the community table or the city table where things slow down. We often have our site plans approved early, and then it's still a couple of years. So, it's got nothing to do with the city. And of course, like it or lump it, under the new provincial laws, it's a very short turnaround that the city must make decisions or we start paying the bills. And frankly, we've always been much better. We have for a number of years getting our site plans out compared to other cities that are 6 months to a year, and we're 2 to 3 months most of the time.
Sure. Well, it's I'm kind of watching that 8th Street to the south of 8th Street, just to see when Flato will start digging for sewers and drainage. That should be coming fairly soon, I would think.
Well, I haven't been up there for a couple of weeks. I expect that it'll be in the next couple of weeks if it hasn't started already. I see they've leveled the land in between South Bridge and what I'll call the Sun Life building for a hotel. So that's going ahead. They're starting to prepare to go in there. There's building work in behind that heading west. So in the back of NPAT by Owen Sound Gardens, where they're moving ahead with the last area in there to build it out. And and of course, just down here at 28th Street, Barry's apartment continues to be finished, 4 or 5 floors, whatever it is. So there's still lots going on.
Now, I wanted to touch for a moment on, you brought a notice of motion at a recent council meeting asking staff to inquire about the 23rd Street East property where the soil from the big dig had been put, and what would be required to prepare that land for sale. Was this just sort of a spur of the moment thing, or do you think that this is getting ready for the next area for development?
Absolutely not spur of the moment, but getting ready for the next development for sure. I had a couple of phone calls of realtors looking for land, and when they looked at that, the purchasers often back away because they don't know what it's going to cost them. Now, we've got a community improvement plan that if you own property that has got some environmental issues, you can clean it up and write the cost of that cleanup off in a steady manner over approximately 10 years. I'm simplifying it, but over a number of years, and recoup the cost of cleaning that up. For a purchaser to come in, they could purchase the land and do that, but they don't know what that's going to take. So we know with some of the projects that are going on around the area that there's a high potential of people, the demand hitting our industrial park. We want to be prepared for it. We want to know if we can clean it up and if it'll make the property more valuable. So, you know, what's the cost to repair versus the sales cost? And, you know, make a business decision. And even without that, how bad is the contamination and what came out of Main Street? Is it bad? Is it sort of bad? Is it not bad at all? What's the likely cost of cleaning up? Let's find that out so we know what we're doing with that piece of property.
I don't recall there being any environmental, or there probably were environmental studies during the Big Dig, but I don't recall any mention of deep contamination. So it may just be accumulation, 100 years of accumulation.
Yeah, we have no idea. And of course, if we were to do the Big Dig now, I'm not sure that we could take anything that might be challenged without knowing what it is and not put it someplace specific. So, you know, that was a decision that was made at the time. It was a good decision at the time. Now times have changed. So it's, you know, it's time to move on. So partly why I brought, we have talked about this for a little while, but councils operate, municipal governments operate by motions. And if we don't bring a motion, it's not on the books and it may never get done. It's, oh yeah, we talked about that, but, you know, staff have got enough on my desk, on their desks already without that. So put it into a motion so that it can be tracked. It's there. They can follow up. They can put a bit of a time limit on it and come back. We did the same thing. Megan Robertson did the same thing at one of the committees to inquire about using hydrogen that could be produced at Hydrogen Optimized as they're building out their electrolyzer equipment. They will produce hydrogen. Can we grab it, make use of it, and reduce diesel, or perhaps eliminate diesel from some of our equipment or gas? Find out, is the technology there yet? It is. It just might not be perfected. Is there different options? And so another thing, you know, going with our climate action plan, what steps can we do and take advantage of a producer here that's going to be producing hydrogen, and see how we can do that. So again, we did it by motion so that it's on the table. Staff can do a study, come back with a report on the different options, and either it'll work or it won't. But we've asked the question and we've made it official.
I would also suggest to people that if they want to learn more about Hydrogen Optimized, take a look at their website. I was astonished to learn that the technology that they are developing is actually a Canadian technology. It's over the basic principles were patented in the 1930s, I think. They're certainly they're new technologies, but they're not new technologies. But they have continually developed the technology over the years. So it's quite remarkable to read.
The Stewart family. This is the fourth generation of the Stewart family that's doing this type of equipment, producing hydrogen, and the technology that they're putting in is theirs. It's not just Canadian; it's theirs, and it's brilliant what they're doing and the way they can do it. So, you know, basically they've come up with something that, the way I understand it, if it's on a solar panel and a cloud flew over and they're not getting 100% of the power to it, they can scale, the machine will scale down to a smaller amount and continue to operate. So it's not an on and off thing. So amazing technology, brilliant, innovative, creative people. And it's a really neat piece of apparatus that they've got there that is scalable, big, can ship anywhere in the world. And yeah, it's pretty nice to have it here.
And it is being used in the world. This isn't pie in the sky stuff. There are places in the world where their technology is in daily use.
Well, it's interesting with vehicles. Elon Musk got to the market first with electric cars and batteries, and everyone's thinking EV. However, batteries aren't necessarily a clean thing to mine, and hydrogen is water in, hydrogen and oxygen out, and then replacing the, and then reversing that. So it was suggested to me that if you are driving a gas-powered vehicle, you're likely to go to a battery. If it's diesel, so bigger trucks, longer haul things, buses, in the long run, they're likely to go to hydrogen. It will account for probably 25 to 40% of the solution for getting to net zero as we move to other vehicles. So, it's a big growth area and a big opportunity for a company manufacturing right here in Owen Sound.
I look forward to the day when you climb into the first battery-powered or hydrogen-powered snowplow for this city.
Well, and seeing hydrogen makes more sense for something like that than battery, because you don't have to stop. We were at the auto show this past year, and there's a hydrogen car there. They're sold in Quebec. They're sold in BC. They do have hydrogen filling stations. We don't have them in scale yet in Ontario, but it was there, and it's a fuel cell piece of equipment. So it really takes the hydrogen and transfers it back into electricity for an electrical motor. So it's not burning hydrogen necessarily, but it's possible to have a combustible hydrogen engine. Just it's cleaner with the fuel cell, and that's where the technology is going.
Well, I was astonished to learn that this summer there will be a test of battery-powered tractors in Grey County. So you never know what you'll see. Hey, watch out for those slow-moving vehicles. It's not a horse. It's not a gasoline or diesel tractor. It might be a battery tractor.
Well, and as we've talked before, McLean Engineering right here in Owen Sound is building big mining equipment, and that's with big batteries on it. And they're really advanced in what they're doing with mining equipment. So, but it takes a big battery for big equipment.
To be sure. Now, one of the, how shall I say it, one of the perennial issues that is on this council's agenda, and actually every municipal council leader's agenda that I interview on this show, is called short-term rentals or short-term accommodations. And the city's got has got a consultative process out there looking for citizen input, is it not?
Yes, I believe it's owensound.ca/ourcity.
No, ourcity.owensound.ca.
There we go. I've got it backwards. So there's an opportunity to go in there, fill out the survey, and give your feedback on it. There will be, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a public meeting. Town of Blue Mountains is far ahead of us because they've had this issue for years, and they've got a very aggressive licensing system. I know there's another municipality over there that's got a straight out ban, but if you look at any given time, there's about 200 houses that are listed on the different Airbnb or Virgo or some of those others. So it's really hard to control. So we're trying to find that balance. Again, at the conference last week, talked to people from up around Perry Sound, a township called the Archipelago, is looking at the Town of Blues plans as we're copying some of it. So in a sense, by going last, you get to beg, borrow, and steal from others that have put a lot more effort in and perfected them over the years. So we're working on that, and that's there for the survey right now. So we encourage people to go in and have a look if it's something you want to comment on.
Yes, and this actually, I want to thank you, Ian, for making the content on Politically Speaking this ongoing issue. I'm having this conversation with every mayor and public servant who appears on the show. And it's interesting to see the variances. Like you're quite right. Town of Blue Mountains is the pioneer for us and the exemplar, and they're glad to share their information. But Deputy Mayor Bourguignon said to me, "I know it's a success because my phone stopped ringing."
Yeah, interesting. Now, just on that, everyone's talking about, so Georgian Bluff you've talked to, Meaford you've talked to,
yep,
and Owen Sound, and behind the scenes, the clerks have all reached out to each other and are working together on what are you doing? What are there's a bit of a team effort going on, and we'll perfect it within each of our own communities. But there's a cooperation that goes on behind the scenes. It's not always said on politically speaking, but there's a lot that goes on in cooperation between our neighboring municipalities and ourselves quite a bit. This is one of them.
Yes, and actually that has been acknowledged that there are conversations that happen at the staff level at whatever it might need be. And this is, like you say, a very good example of that. Speaking of which, we have had relatively recently the agreement between Georgian Bluffs and Owen Sound for compost. That's another example of those conversations that happen. And is it safe to say those conversations are ongoing?
Yes, with a staffing gap in Georgian Bluffs right now, it's quieting down, but it's still going on. You know, our union public library is a union of Chatsworth, Owen Sound, Georgian Bluffs, with Meaford being the old Sydenham would have been a member. Meaford is a contract in. So there's, those meetings go on all the time. We'll continue to talk about water that Georgian Bluffs is interested in, and frankly, other opportunities. So it used to be when the city made a decision that excluded community members from Georgian Bluffs, it was Owen Sound Council that heard about it. This time, it was Georgian Bluffs Council that heard about it, so they were quite willing to phone us and say, we want to participate. So it was, it's nice that they're phoning the right people to voice their interest in participating.
Now, I haven't been out to the compost site for a week. I haven't been cutting my lawn. Don't tell bylaw that. But last time I was out there, there was a very large pile of beautiful black compost that is free for the taking for people of Owen Sound and Georgian Bluffs.
It's amazing how quickly it turns over, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, yeah. Well, Ian, believe it or not, we've come to the end of our time, and I see you survived the outdoor exposure.
I've only got 10 more things on my list to talk about. How many seconds do we have?
About 30. So we're going to have to put this off until next fall.
Oh, yeah. Have a good summer.
So thank you, Ian Boddy, Mayor of Owen Sound, for the conversation. Lots of things to talk about, but hey, we always run out of time. And thank you, friends, for being a part of Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman, and yes, we will talk again.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
But he's, taking up some space, and just a perfect shot.
And we got a tie ball game. Nice low shot, right around.
Looking for the best way to get the Major League Baseball games you want to watch? Rogers Super Sports Pack has you covered. With MLB Extra Innings, you'll have a premium ticket to out of